probably right here. And the barriers are really, students will take $11 courses, 11 different instructors. The degree to which some instructors are invested in assessment and evaluation as rewards and punishments, as a sort of traditional ways of thinking about, are going to come through for some of them in some of their classes. There's not consistency, and it typically is around grading, right? So the grading can be inconsistent around the ways, and those are philosophic differences. So there are folks on faculty who are criterion-based graders, there are folks who are norm-based graders, there are folks who are opposed to grading altogether and everyone gets an A. And that distinction right there creates problems, and it can't be mandated any differently, at least at this point. So there's that piece of it. And then there's some instructional models that are not strong, and they're not ones that, in the hierarchical positioning of higher ed, that I can address because they're tenure-line faculty, and I'm a non-tenure-line faculty, and that's the way this program was designed. Mm-hmm. So the tenure-track faculty would have to police themselves. They don't. Mm-hmm. Or police each other. Mm-hmm. They don't do that. However, we each police ourselves. So where some of the courses are students, I keep thinking like if you gave the surveys to students, what would they reflect, right? Mm-hmm. So the students would say, oh no, there's some really poor practice in some of the courses that I took, and really strong practice in some of them. So it's not, so it has to fall over here. And it would be around grading, it would be around the modeling of particular kinds of instruction. But I would say if I had a tool like this that I could put forth to our faculty and say, this is what we're going to work toward, it would provide more direction, mm-hmm. right? And create a tool for more specific conversations around that. But I don't think that our faculty who don't do those things recognize that they don't do those things either. So, yeah. So, but I would say where I do have a high degree of power and control as a program director is over my pro tems. And mm-hmm. so I can be very directive of what they are and aren't doing and how they are or aren't bringing community into the course and where they're involving student voices in their course, P12 student voices in their course. And, so I can have criteria for them, and I do, for their instruction, but the TTF they're going to make their own decisions on those things, and all I can do is reflect what students report, what students report experiencing. I don't evaluate them.
And that's the last part of the rubric. Is there anything you want to add before I turn off recording?
So you're doing this as your dissertation. Who's your advisor?
Sue Feldman is my chair.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And who else is on your committee?
Dawn Montgomery and Diane Watson.
Okay. And are you all in ed leadership? Where are you located? Where's this research being located?
Yeah, educational
ed
leadership.
Mm-hmm. Ed leadership. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then those are just things I want to know because you're carrying around now a narrative.
Right.
Like I was very honest with you at all levels, so it's where does that narrative live? Mm-hmm.
If you do want to read through it again as far
as
confidentiality?
I read through it. I just wanted to have in my head who was inside this conversation, because you'll have direct conversations with your chair, mm-hmm. and that confidentiality, she lives inside of that.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to refresh in my head who has this information. I think I don't have an issue with that. I just like to know mm-hmm. who I'm in conversation with. And I guess what other questions I have? What is your hopes to do with this particular research besides defend it and get your PhD?
angle there. Diane keeps saying a good dissertation is a done dissertation.
Yes.
She motivates me that way. My goal is to look at programs as a whole and look at where can we make improvements, I think, to better align how we're preparing teacher candidates in the state of Oregon. And I reflect a lot on my experience and when I entered the classroom and how in the areas I felt underprepared. And I believe that it was because of the location of where I got my degree and their emphasis on equity. I know we have to meet standards, but the way that we're approaching it is very different throughout the state. And so my hope is that I can look at the areas that we can improve.
So that makes me super curious. So the ways you entered your classroom, what did you experience as underprepared or unprepared?
I guess the way that we looked at preparing for equity was primarily racial based.
Okay.
And so working with children and families from low socioeconomic standing, I felt like a lot of what I was operating was underneath my bias, and I kind of had to go through a journey of working with families and children and then looking at my peers and the other staff in my building and the journeys they're on and how they were prepared and the biases and assumptions they're operating underneath just because they haven't examined those or been forced to examine those. And I think teacher preparation is where we need to do it before we even enter the field.
So your questions would lead me to think that why did I think this? That your primary focus was around race. Up there. No, where are the questions? You can turn that off. I was just trying to process.